Simulcast going on here. Um, it's Bob. I'm here with Kyle and John. Just talking Week 5 NFL. How are you guys doing this week?
Doing well. Last week, I think we were all pretty much on Austin Eckler, Wayne Gallman, Christian McCaffrey, and just having those dudes put you in the green. So I don't know. It was a good week. Nothing crazy, but made money, and that's kind of what we're here for. So
Yeah, we did what we had to do last week. Excited to do the exact same thing this week. And we got an interesting slate, too. I think there's going to be a lot less overlap in all formats this week. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, it seems like a bad slate overall, but like a good slate if you're just on the right plays and make those 1v1 decisions or 2v2s better than the other players in cash and tournaments. So looking forward to hopping in. Kyle, you want to kick us off with games?
yeah, we have my first game is the New York Giants hosting the Minnesota Vikings. They are 5.5 point dogs at home. Totals dropped a point to 43.5. I mean, pretty much Dalvin Cook as a 5.5 point favorite. Don't know how you would ever get off that. Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard are both getting volume, good guys to run him back with. I think an interesting thing to talk about probably is Wayne Gallman, because he's going to be at least the most controversial of these players, I think, or maybe Sterling Shepard will be, because I think we're all going to be at least somewhat excited to play Dalvin Cook. So kick it off on the Giants side of things. Go ahead, Bobby, if you could.
Yeah, so you hit on Dalvin Cook, Wayne Gallman, obviously in that price range on a slate where we're kind of stuck for value. A lot of people are going to be chasing his performance last week. For me on the Giants side, it's going to Evan Ingram. I think he's going to be the guy that I'm kind of really interested in on this slate versus Minnesota. We've seen what tight ends have done in Minnesota in recent weeks. It's been a thing for like maybe a year and a half, to be honest, versus Minnesota tight ends. Um, so Evan Ingram would be the guy, and then I'd like to run it back with obviously who I think is going to be a staple in one of my cash game would be Dalvin Cook. John, you can get more into like Dalvin Cook and why he's a really good play. I know Kyle kind of went over it, but
Yeah, basically he's right now leading the NFL in rushing. He's got a great matchup against one of the worst defenses in the league. So it's kind of a no-brainer. What's interesting, though, is like this could be a squeaky wheel spot. Adam Thielen came out and pretty much said that Kirk Cousins is garbage. And then Steph Diggs like just randomly didn't show up to practice today. So like they got a lot of issues going on. So it could be a spot with the Giants secondary where maybe they try to get Thielen and Diggs going and grease those wheels, but still certainly a good spot for Dalvin Cook. He's definitely one of the top plays on the slate. And going back to the Wayne Gallman thing, I know his price came up, but it didn't come up a ton. So I actually do have a little bit of interest still, just because the pass game role is pretty secure. I know Hilliman was mixing in, but he did have the fumble, and Gallman saw 7 or 8 targets. So I actually don't hate the play, but their team total did come down 1 point. So it's not like a lock like it was last week by any means.
Yeah, I think that sums it up well. I'm not super interested in Gallman, basically for the reasons you said. Basically, Hillman, even Elijah Penny getting some work, but like he still didn't get an extreme price up. What is he like 5,400? I think. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's egregious play. I just think paying up this week is probably where I'm gonna be at. I guess any interest in you for any other players on the Giants, because I think Bobby nailed it with. I'm not going Sterling Shepard. For me, it's pretty much all Evan Ingram.
yeah, I've a lot of people have talked about Sterling Shepard. I feel like he's probably more of a chase than Gallman. Gallman, John kind of broke down Gallman really well. Like he's fringe cash. There's a lot of guys in that area. The price didn't go up enough. The matchup's tough. So for me, like just I think Evan Ingram's a really sharp play on the slate. He's my favorite Giant. Kind of already talked about it.
The only thing I have like to worry about, not worry because Ingram will still get his, but with the return of Golden Tate, I really worry more about Shepard than I do Ingram. So I think it kind of brings pretty much all the pass catchers down just a notch. But still, I mean, Ingram's a stud. He's going to get volume, so definitely not a bad play.
All right, I think that wraps this game. Let's move on to Baltimore visiting Pittsburgh. They're 3.5 point favorites. The total's at 44. It's actually up a point and a half from where it opened. Like Lamar Jackson, I mean, you play Miami, of course, you're going to have a great game, but like he has clearly come back down from being like, oh, maybe he's also a great passer. Like he's just a better volume, more efficient, but he's not like not just the stone cold lock every week. Although the stone cold lock in tournaments, I mean, it's Marquise Brown until I go broke. Like the number 3 player in terms of air yards, I swear I'm going to go broke playing him. And then after I go broke, I'm like, guys, I can't play anymore. I lost all my money. He's going to go for like 150. So, I mean, third in the league in air yards, but hasn't produced in the past few weeks. I think it's just like good process to chase volume, especially at low ownership. Any interest in running it back? Obviously, if you don't think it's good play, go ahead and roast me. But like, any interest in running it back with Pittsburgh players, John?
Yeah, I mean it's really tough to kind of project this Pittsburgh offense. We saw what they did on Monday night. It was a good matchup, but they were doing some odd things. You know, they ran quite a bit of wildcat with Jalen Samuels after not seeing a touch the previous week. Samuels had like 9 targets. So it'll be interesting to see the split going forward between James Conner and Jalen Samuels. Samuels is cheap; he's only 4,100. So I guess he could be in the conversation. But I think we'd have to get more news on the James Conner injury. I know he was banged up this week. It looks like he's going to play, but basically, if they're all active, I don't have a ton of interest on this side. Bob, what about you?
Yeah, Deontay Johnson at 4,400. He had a big week last week, but I'm of the same opinion. Like, I'm not really looking to chase. I think what I'm going to chase is Kyle going broke and then playing Marquise Brown the following week. That's what I'm going to wait for. But no, I there's not much in this game. Like Lamar Jackson at 7,100. I don't mind paying up for him on this slate just because basically you don't have Mahomes, you don't have Russell Wilson. Like, I don't really love the quarterbacks on this slate, so I don't mind Lamar Jackson. It's just tough to run it back with anyone on Pittsburgh. And honestly, you really don't have to run it back. I think Lamar Jackson's just fine as a one-off.
Yeah, given his rushing ability, like you don't necessarily need to correlate him. I agree with that. And also, I think especially in tournaments, like it's going to be. Do you think it'll be unique to have Lamar Jackson, given that there's no like stone cold locks? Like we'll talk about Auden Tate later. He's kind of the one guy that I think is like the low price lock. But outside of that, there's not the running back locks that we have. I think paying up for running back is going to be popular. So do you think there's a chance we get a little bit of lower ownership?
I think definitely there should be lower ownership. And I think it's a really good contrarian play in tournaments. Just get that extra equity because we don't really have like a significant like a running back value that's standing out. So maybe just using Lamar Jackson and using a wide receiver in your flex, like you're differentiating yourself in that way and just rostering 2 stud running backs. So pretty much you have 3 with L Jacks.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think we're ready to move on to the next game. Not the most interesting game, 41-point total. Jacksonville visiting Carolina, but 2 running backs in this game both went off last week and are both getting volume. So I think I am at least more inclined to chase like Christian McCaffrey, a good player. Say what you want about Leonard Fournette, but I tend to think he's at least an all right player. So I'm fine with at least if I'm going to chase players to make them good players getting volume. So like outside of those 2 guys, Bobby, where are you thinking about going, if anything, in this game? And of course, like what's your feel on these running backs?
Yeah, for me, like I like Zeke. Right now, I have him as my guy ahead of McCaffrey. Just thinking about rostering, I would probably roster Zeke. If the ownership says that I have to play McCaffrey in cash, like I'll play McCaffrey in cash and move off Zeke. We have UF Collective at thefantasybros.com. It's a really good indicator of who you should be playing in cash games just because of how accurate the ownership is. John, where are you going in terms of like your McCaffrey Elliott split? If we're going off on a little tangent here.
Yeah, I'd side with CMC just because of the role, and I think ownership will definitely reflect that. Just because we talk about it pretty much every week. That type of role that he has in the offense, especially with Kyle Allen under center, like McCaffrey is basically the entire offense. Came really close to the rushing and receiving bonus last week. So I know it's a low total game, but because his volume is so high, he's definitely the top play on the slate for me. I know the matchup isn't ideal, but I would side with him. And really, Kyle hit on it. The running backs are really my favorite targets in this game. We talked about Leonard Fournette last week. we all mentioned how he's like one of the top buy low candidates right now because of all the volume he was seeing, and his box score numbers didn't reflect it. And now, even now, after the monster game, like he's still yet to score a touchdown. So like bigger games are coming for Fournette. I'm not sure if this is the spot, but the price isn't too bad.
Yeah, I want to. Both of these running backs, I think, are good values. Like we were talking about, McCaffrey is potentially being the number one. I think I am certainly, because of his receiving game work, the potential for the double bonus on McCaffrey. But like Zeke is a great play too. Bobby, you are generally of the opinion that you shouldn't be playing two running backs from the same game. Do you want to explain that more? Because I mean, if there was a game to do it, it would be this one. So do you want to talk about that?
It's just a negative correlation because you have two running backs. They don't really go well with great game script. Like obviously, the running back that you'd rather have right now is Zeke with the 3.5 spread, and then on the Green Bay side, Aaron Jones could work, I guess, if he's going to be utilized in the pass game. But we've seen Jamal Williams also be utilized in the pass game. I just try to stay away from it. That would pretty much be the reason as to why. Also, a lot of rushing, you pretty much burn the clock. The game clock, so it's another reason why they don't correlate.
Yeah, cool. I just want to talk about the process behind that. And Aaron Jones, Ezekiel Elliott, both another good pair of running backs you might have to make the choice with. So I think with that, we can move on to the next game. I know you're a little more interested in this than I am. We have the Buffalo Bills playing Tennessee Titans. I don't care about this game. Is a 38.5 point total. I think it is pretty safe to write this one off, although you have at least one play that I am interested in. So do you want to hop into this one and tell me what you think about probably the lowest total game of the slate, almost certainly?
Yeah, John Brown's a really good one-off at 5,100. And I think he benefits from Barkley. Because obviously, like, the air yards aren't going to be there with Barkley. He doesn't have the arm that Josh Allen has, but he'll definitely see more targets. If Barkley plays, even if Josh Allen plays, like, he can easily get by Malcolm Butler deep. Like, I love John Brown. If he's in at low ownership, I think he's a really fantastic play on the slate as a one-off, I would say. Any thoughts on this game, John?
Yeah, actually, I'm pretty big on Derrick Henry in this spot.
I'm with you, man. This is good. Good.
I'm really high on Derrick Henry. He's only 6K. He rushed for 100 yards last week. Didn't score, so people aren't going to be on him. And I say it. I feel like I'm on repeat because I say every week the way to attack the Bills is through the run. The Titans are at home here. They're a 3-point favorite, so you like to target Derrick Henry as a home favorite. And we saw last season, like, he has slate winning upside. So definitely in this spot, in a good matchup against the Bills, who can be run against. They're like a reverse funnel. So I actually love Derrick Henry this week.
It's funny you said that because me and Kyler were talking about this on the on our most recent podcast that we're just on Diehards, and we got into this, and I said, I was like, I like John Brown, and I like running him back with Derrick Henry. So Kyle, have your thoughts changed in this game, or are you still not enticed?
I'm still not enticed. I don't know. I think like you don't like playing like Matt Breida and Matt Ryan. Derrick Henry the same way for me. But as soon as you said John Brown, I'm like, actually, like John Brown should sort of always be in your player pool, especially when we saw last week that maybe the air yards won't be there, but the volume in terms of total targets is still there. So yeah, I think when you said that, I was like, that makes sense. You actually kind of have to be on John Brown. At least it's always viable to be on John Brown. But I'll still, I mean, if both you guys are on it, like, I'm not going to call you guys both stupid. Like, it's probably a sharp play. I'll have to at least think about it more.
Yeah, think about it, Kyle.
Outside of that, I don't care about this game at all. Cole Beasley, 12 targets for 12 air yards. Any interest?
No, thanks.
Yeah, not on Cole Beasley.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to Chicago facing the Raiders. I have at least a few plays I'm interested in this game. Chicago are 5-point favorites. 40.5 point total is pretty low, so that's kind of one of the things that might keep me shying away from my plays. But David Montgomery, basically Mike Davis. Shout out to my best ball shares, Mike Davis, all dead. He got like a pretty decent run in week 1 and then has just disappeared. And last week he didn't practice because of a personal issue. He just wasn't practicing. And they ended up sitting him. He was inactive. They're not sure if he's going to play this week. Basically, it's become the David Montgomery show. He's got 19.7 touches on average over the past 3 weeks. I think it's honestly a very similar situation to what we saw last week with like Leonard Fournette or Nick Chubb, where you just find the guys who are getting like an inordinate amount of volume relative to their fantasy points and buy low. And I think because he's produced so little, it's going to be same as those guys, where you get the reasonable ownership despite the fact that it's great game script against Oakland, who's got a bad defense. And then I don't mind running it back with Darren Waller because he's like one of the highest target share tight ends in the league. So
it's funny. We just talked about that guy you described, Derrick Henry.
I mean, hey, you guys are definitely catching a blind spot there. I hate Derrick Henry, but if he's a good play, he's a good play.
Yeah, no, it looks like a good play. No, like honestly, I like the Waller take. I'm not really high on Jacobs, rookie running back. I know the game spread kind of favors him, but when you talk about the usage, those kind of numbers definitely get me interested, I would say, because they're like what we're looking for. So I think that's a really good call on your part. John, how you see it?
Yeah, I think Montgomery's a pretty sharp play this week. We'll see how ownership shakes out. That's going to be one where if he becomes like the popular play, I'll be less interested. But if he's kind of one of those guys that people aren't excited because he hasn't had that big game yet, then I think I'll definitely have some exposure. But I actually in tournaments, I think Tariq Cohen is worth some exposure. He's probably going to be sub 5% owned. He's 4,800. He's averaging like just under 6 targets per game this season. But with Chase Daniels, if you going back to last season, like Chase Daniels really basically they do what the Steelers did with Mason Rudolph, is they try to get their playmakers the ball in space so that the guys can get yards after the catch. So I forget the exact numbers, and I did have them earlier and I forgot, but basically his touches between Daniels and Trubisky almost double. Like he gets like 8 touches more per game with Chase Daniel at quarterback. So I could just see him just because, again, he's a guy that could break the slate, and he hasn't had a big week yet. So he's going to be it's more of like a milli maker type play or a deep tournament play, but I think he's worth some shares this week.
So John played that Thanksgiving slate last year, as we Chase Daniels, Tariq Cohen slate.
I've been chasing it ever since.
Me too. So we actually talked about the Tariq Cohen play on the last pod as well. Yeah, I think Tariq Cohen's a great call, especially with Daniels. Those splits with Trubisky, without Trubisky, they're pretty significant. So I like a guy like Tariq in tournaments who can really like basically break a slate. I think he's a really good play. Kyle, any love for Tariq Cohen?
If David Montgomery, I was thinking about this. If David Montgomery does end up being chalk, I still think he won't be, but it's very possible. Like he's a good play, he should be. If he ends up being very popular, Tariq Cohen's like a great leverage play. And to just back up your point of Chase Daniel targeting him extra, it's very known that your running quarterbacks generally are targeting their running backs less. Like it's just a negative correlation between them. So when you take Trubisky out, he's going to be targeting Chase Daniel will be targeting your running back more. So yeah, that's probably where I'd leave that.
I just want to give more validation to Kyle's take with Montgomery, though, and Chase Daniels. If Montgomery's seeing the usage that he's seeing, Chase Daniels is going to have the opportunity to throw to Montgomery, so that could give more credence to rostering Montgomery in the situation. He's a good pass catcher we've seen in college, so I don't hate the Montgomery play. It's just a matter of, like, is he going to be the guy that we're looking at for the value?
I also think in the higher stakes, we've talked about this, he'll be a more well-known play. In like the lower stakes, which I would imagine, like that's where like I'm still able to, like, Bobby, you're priced out of anything below $5, unlike me where I get to play with a bunch of fish people. So yeah, I think it'll go overlooked, at least in lower stakes.
Yeah, I wonder though, because all those season-long guys that took Montgomery in the 5th round, actually they're probably off him by now.
I know, it's the thing. He's hurt them too many times, despite being a good play based on volume.
No, I get you. It's a sharp one, Kyle.
I'm full of them. Let's hop into our next game. We have Tampa Bay in New Orleans. They are 3-point dogs. I find this interesting. That would imply that they're even teams on a neutral field. It is a 46.5 point total. Came down 1 point from 47.5. Pretty much for me, I'm not super interested in the Saints. I know they've got like talented guys, and I think if Alvin Kamara ends up being like extremely low owned, like we talked about this basically when Teddy Bridgewater first started, like when you get a guy that talented at low ownership, like it's just like potential to go nuts. Same can probably be said for Michael Thomas, but at 6,600, like he's so good value that he might be pretty. I'm actually not sure where his ownership's going to fall. And then playing Tampa Bay just feels like it's chasing pretty hard for me. But like, talk to me, John, about is it just another Chris Godwin week? 'Cause, like, he's definitively a better player. Like, I'm not sure how he's not getting so much more volume than Mike Evans, but they seem to want to still keep giving Mike Evans a lot of volume.
Yeah, it is another Chris Godwin week, but it's no secret. Like, he's going to be owned for sure. But the Saints are bottom 5 in slot. Basically, they give up. They're bottom 5 in points given up in the slot. Chris Godwin primarily runs out of the slot, so basically, play Chris Godwin. Don't have to think about it much there. But Alvin Kamara, I think, is something we need to talk about because I have him projected as like one of my top running backs on the slate. And so originally I thought he was going to be chalky, and now I'm really not so sure. Coming off the bad game, it's still Teddy Bridgewater, so people just don't want to play him with Teddy. And then he had the dud on the primetime game against the Cowboys. And then you have CMC, Zeke, and Dalvin Cook priced all in that same range. So he honestly could be like the forgotten guy there. And Tampa Bay is pretty stout against the run, but I really don't care because of the passing game volume. So I actually think Kamara, and we'll see as the week goes on, but he's creeping up towards one of the top running back tournament plays for me.
Yeah, and where I'd like to differentiate myself if I could is with a guy like Kamara. If he's going to be low owned, like I'd rather take a risk on him than someone who's like a low value running back, like say David Montgomery or Miles Sanders or one of those. One of those.
You brought
guys.
one of your guys too, though, so it's all fair.
Yeah, no, I brought up both. So yeah, we'll get into Sanders in a little bit, but yeah, so I'd rather probably go the Kamara route if I wanted to like be different in that sense, and running it back with Godwin for all the reasons that you just gave. Tampa in the slot. I mean, New Orleans is in the slot. Like, yeah, it makes sense in tournaments.
Two more things I want to talk about. John, any interest in the ancillary weapons that are Ronald Jones and OJ Howard? Because like Ronald Jones,
I knew you were going to bring up OJ Howard.
I still think he's good. Like, nothing will convince me that he's not a good player because he's been like last week 3 targets, 3 catches, 62 yards, but like they're just not playing him. And apparently his like PFF grades as a pass blocker and a rush blocker are like 2 of the worst in the league. So it's really hard for him to actually like get onto the field. So I don't know. I think he just might be like just not worth ever trying to chase.
Yeah, I'm out, and this is a guy like I was beating the drum for OJ Howard. Like he's garbage, dude. Like I'm done with him. I'm okay saying that I'm done with him. Let him be somebody else's problem. In season longs, I would drop him, even though I haven't yet in my league that I have him. But I'm definitely not playing him in DFS. You know, like you said, he actually is dead last in like run blocking tight end per Pro Football Focus, and I think he's second to last as a pass blocking tight end. And had another big mistake in the game last week as well with a holding penalty that had a Ronald Jones touchdown called back. So that just put him in the doghouse even more. So I have zero interest there. And Ronald Jones actually looked really good, but again, no passing game volume. I just can't get that excited about a running back with no passing game volume unless their name is Derrick Henry and they're a home favorite.
Yeah, so the Ronald Jones thing for me, like, yeah, no passing, just like how you basically said it is like, yeah, he looks better, but I just can't go there with no passing game volume. I like of the same opinion. What are you guys' thoughts on Mike Evans? Did you just get into that? I was people were coming in and I just missed what you guys were saying.
I don't think we talked about him too much, and I mean we mentioned him for sure, but like I'm pretty sure he's still crushing Chris Godwin in terms of air yards.
The air yards, right? Like in the last 3 weeks, I think it was Silva who tweeted like he's been like the top in the league in air yards. So
that's the thing is like when they're looking for big plays, they're still looking to Mike Evans. I mean, he's 6'5", he's a monster. He's able to go up and get the ball. So when they're looking to move the chains and get first downs, that's when they're looking at Chris Godwin. But when they're looking to make those big plays, it's still Mike Evans. So I mean, he's definitely in play every week because we saw what type of upside he has.
He's had some bad games in the Superdome. I know from personal experience rostering him. But no, I'm interested just because it is in the Superdome and for the reasons that we just talked about. What are you thinking, Kyle, for the next game?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up Mike Evans, number one in the league in air yards over the entire season. And it's not even, he's like almost 60 ahead of Keenan Allen, number two. So, yeah, I'm of the opinion that I kind of want to tend to chase the air yards, especially if Chris Godwin is going to be high on. But yeah, we can move on to the next game. Let me see here. We have, this is a pretty interesting one for your tournament builds. We have the Falcons facing the Houston Texans. Texans are 5-point favorites at home with a 49-point total. I believe that is the highest on the main slate. So there is a lot of plays here. For me, I think John and I are both pretty in on Matt Ryan, whereas Rob, like, did he like fight you in college? Did he like steal a girlfriend of yours? You do not like Matt Ryan.
No, dude, Dirk Cotter's done so much for his fantasy value. Matt Ryan, I just don't. I'm not of the opinion that he's a good real life NFL quarterback. And Kyle thinks this take is like egregious. Like,
I don't think it's egregious.
Without Kyle Shanahan, like he hasn't been good. Like he hasn't been good since Kyle Shanahan left. Like I know Sarkisian wasn't anything to write home about, but like he just doesn't. He gets it done in fantasy now because Cotter, and he didn't last year with Sarkisian. He just doesn't look great. Honestly, I think for me I'm pretty much off Atlanta. Like I guess Julio Jones would be my favorite play. Calvin Ridley hasn't gotten the usage. Kyle brought this up to me pretty recently, so I'm pretty much stealing his take. Hooper is the guy that Kyle was touting, so I'm just saying it for him. Like I guess he's fine. I'm not playing him. On the other side, the Houston side, that's where I would like to kind of put my chips, I would say, where I put them last week in Will Fuller, and he didn't score that 75-yard touchdown. Pretty tilting. Found out about it today. Had some pretty good scores. I'm going back to the well on Fuller. John, where are you going?
Yeah, I'm going back to the well on Fuller as well. One of my favorite tournament plays. Also, just wanted to clear something up. Matt Ryan finished second in fantasy points amongst QBs last season. So he definitely is a good fantasy quarterback.
Yeah, I said he was a good fantasy quarterback. I said he wasn't a good NFL quarterback.
Good real life. Okay.
Good real life quarterback.
But I said the thing is he's finished top 10 in 5 consecutive seasons in expected points added per play. Just like on a real life football wins above replacement level, he has been in the top of the league every single year. Like even with variance playing into it, top 10. If you don't think that's good, he was number 2 one season. Like his peaks are the best, literally the best in the league over the entire season.
Yeah, he was 2 with Shanahan. He wasn't. The state of like the quarterback position in the NFL right now is absolutely horrible. The state in the league is horrible. So like all those numbers are juiced. You know what I'm saying? Like I just can't. I don't love Ryan. Like he just doesn't. Watch a Matt Ryan game on
Watch the film. Watch the film, guys.
No, I'm not a watch the film guy. I'm not Justin. Like, first of all, Empire Maker watches pretty much every game, and he's one of the best DFS players that go. I don't even watch film. I just look at pretty much everything that you're looking at. Like, if not, probably more, to be perfectly honest. Because
let's be clear. Like, I honestly don't care if he's good in real life. Like, all I care about is fantasy. And anytime a quarterback has a stud wide receiver like Julio Jones, like DeAndre Hopkins, like that automatically gives them a significant bump in my mind. So that's why I trust Matt Ryan. He's hit the 300-yard bonus in I think every single game this year. I think every single game this year. Failed to throw a touchdown last week. I did have some Ryan stacks last week. I'm going right back. I think he'll definitely be more owned just because this game is so juicy. But basically, I mean, we kind of hinted at it. You can stack this game every which way, and you can get creative with it. Calvin Ridley's a guy that's not going to be owned. Obviously has some risk, but he's cheap now. He's at 4,900, I think. And Austin Hooper's been crushing. Sanu had a good game. Like you can play all of these guys, and then, like I said, run it back with Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins because I think both of those are good bounce back candidates this week.
Yeah, I love the Will Fuller call. The air yards, just buy the air yards, man. Any interest in the running backs, given in mind, like keeping in mind that the answer to that question is so obviously no.
Yeah, there really is no. I mean, it's not that either of them are bad plays. It's just that like I don't see a ceiling game from any of them. Like Carlos Hyde has been getting a lot of volume, but like for him to have a ceiling game, like he literally has to score like 2 or 3 touchdowns. So I'm just not going there. And then Devontae Freeman, Atlanta has shown zero faith that they want to use him as like a true workhorse running back. So, and even with Ito Smith out, they didn't really. So I'm just not super interested. I'm going to attack the pass game, and hopefully that's where the touchdowns come from.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing. I have no interest in any of these running backs.
All right, a game I'm sure you do have interest in running backs. The Patriots are 14.5-point favorites against Washington. Totals moved down significantly to 42. I think I'm not playing anyone on Washington. You guys, if you want to lose money, I'm sure you could probably lose it by playing guys on Washington. And the Patriots, for me, is just a matter of figuring out who, because they're going to put up points. Right now, they have an implied team total of just over 28. They're going to score touchdowns. It's just a matter of who. So I guess, John, kick it off. Where are you, if at all, going in this game?
Yeah, same old story with the Patriots. Always a high team total, and I never know who I want to play other than when we had the Rex Burkhead week. James White is always a solid play. I like to target him in close games because then I could realistically see a ceiling game from him. This game I do not think is going to be close, no surprise. But I do kind of like Josh Gordon here just because I think this is a spot where the passing game could bounce back. Didn't have a touchdown. Tom Brady didn't last week against Buffalo. Now he gets the worst secondary in the NFL. So I think we could definitely see a couple touchdowns to the receivers here, and Josh Gordon's kind of due for a big game.
Yeah, for me, James White is probably the guy. Just a short passing game. I think it makes a lot of sense with the injuries on the Patriots offensive line, the dink and dunk mentality of like the Patriots offense that we've seen for 2 decades now. Julian Edelman would be another guy at 6,300. I'd probably prefer him to Gordon. I like Gordon. I think I'm pretty bullish the more I think about it on the Patriots passing game on that side. Dorsett's a great price at 4,900. I don't mind him. And on the Washington side, I don't want to run it back with anyone. That's what makes this difficult. But if I had to, it would be Chris Thompson or maybe McLaurin. But I would prefer Thompson. How about you, Kyle?
Yeah, I'm not awfully interested in a banged up McLaurin facing Stephon Gilmore, especially I don't know if any of his quarterbacks are going to throw the ball with any accuracy beyond 5 yards downfield, but that sets up perfectly for Chris Thompson. So if I do run it back, absolutely it's Chris Thompson. If you're a degenerate and love playing showdown slates, Jeremy Sprinkle, the third string tight end, might end up starting because Vernon Davis in concussion protocol and Jordan Reed is picking up his legs off the ground. I don't know what he's doing right now. He's not playing, and he's min price at 200. Min price on showdown is so much different. He's gonna pay off if he catches 2 balls for just call it 10 yards. What's he pay off there? I don't know, 30x or something.
Is that the showdown game?
I think that's a pretty good take.
Yeah, it's one of the 1 p.m. showdown games.
Okay, cool.
Last week I think I brought it up. It was Ty Johnson, and he 5 to 10x his value because he got a reception. That's all it takes.
I honestly think the Sprinkle take's a good take, and it's a good way.
Yeah, it is.
You have to look for where you have an edge, right? And if that's a play that you can exploit within a given slate or plays in general that you can exploit, I like attacking that and putting volume behind that in terms of what I'm playing. So I like that call.
Once projections come out for showdown slate players, I literally just run price versus those and see if there's one player popping up as a 20x play, because I think Ty Johnson was a 5% owned player or something and crushed his value. Just shout out to Patrick Mahomes for throwing 0 touchdowns, so that was awesome.
Yeah, I feel like I got absolutely railroaded last week with no Mahomes touchdowns, the Will Fuller TD called back, and then Keenan Allen 69. Well, everyone got 69-yard touchdown call back. Will Fuller had I think it was a drop or an overthrow and wide open. Yeah.
That's enough showdown degeneracy, though. We have our next game. This one is going to be a pretty pivotal point in terms of wide receivers. We have the Cincinnati Bengals hosting the Cardinals. They are 4-point favorites. The Bengals are 47.5-point total. One of the higher ones on the slate. I don't think we even need to talk about it too much. Auden Tate as the clear number 2 receiver. He's been getting volume before John Ross got hurt. Now John Ross on IR. Expecting to play pretty much all of the snaps. They have I want to say 5 active wide receivers right now, and one of them they just called up from the practice squad. I don't know. You take your 5 target floor, like bare bones floor at 3,500 and move on. Like, that's just kind of the cash game strat. So I guess where else? I mean, this a similar situation on the Arizona side, except I have no clue what they're doing with their second wide receiver with Christian Kirk and Demir Bird out.
Well, CJ Uzoma is also like questionable, so I think Tyler Eifert would end up being a really good play at 3,300 and against a team that we pretty much play tight ends a ton versus in Arizona. I really like David Johnson. Really like Larry Fitzgerald. Both should see more volume in the passing game without Kurt. John, how are you kind of viewing it?
Yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting one, because we all saw how atrocious the Cincinnati Bengals looked against the Steelers. So I kind of think that that's at least going to minimize the ownership on some of the Bengals players, at least by a little bit. Aside from Auden Tate, who's just going to be super chalk. But Kyle hit on it. I mean, 16 targets over the last 2 games. Now he gets the nut matchup against Arizona. He's obviously a great play. And I think Tyler Boyd, projects as a really good play too. Even after the dud last week, I like him to bounce back. Love the call on Eifert, Bob. I think he is going to be popular just for the people that are playing the matchups against Arizona. But he's only 3,300. Doesn't run a lot of routes, but if Uzoma can't go, then he may have to. So I know there's another tight end there that played well in the preseason, so we might see some of him. But I still like Eifert there for the cheap tag. And then Kyle hit on the injuries on the Arizona side. There's speculation that Andy Isabella could have some type of a role, but until we see that, he's only 3,200. But until we see that, I can't really trust it. I have more interest in Keyshawn Johnson, who's also in that same price range. Obviously, those guys are risky, but with Arizona running so many 4 wide receiver sets, he's going to be on the field. So I think you could do worse in like deep GPP plays.
Yeah, the tight end you were thinking of was Drew Sample, but he's like almost exclusively a blocking tight end. At least that's what he played in college. So I think all that's going to happen is whenever they want a tight end to block, they'll run out Drew Sample, and whenever they want a tight end to run a route at all, that's when we'll see Tyler Eifert. I mean, in terms of like Andy Isabella was a dominant slot player in college. Like he can move across the field in any way, but I think his skill set fits best in the slot. And then Trent Sherfield and Keyshawn Johnson are both at 2% or less of their snaps taken in the slot. Yet this week, Cliff came out and said they want to run Andy Isabella outside. So Cliff might be the smartest dumb person in the NFL right now.
So Eifert, just with how many plays that Arizona runs per game in a pace-up spot, we know he doesn't run a ton of routes, but like he's going to have to in this situation at 3,300. Like he's a really good pivot off Auden Tate in tournaments. Like really good pivot. If you wanted to go after that like 70% bust rate on low value wide receivers and go to the guy, well, he's still a low value tight end, and it's pretty much. I just think I think Eifert's a really good play.
Yeah,
he would be. He pretty much could have had 2 touchdowns last week. He would be chalked this week if he had caught one of them.
Yeah, I think in terms of like I've been thinking about great ways to leverage like Auden Tate ownership, because you said just like we know wide receivers bust at a very high rate. He's a great cash game play, but that's really sharp, the Eifert call. So I just want to echo what you said there.
What do we have hopping in next? What game?
Next, disgusting. We have the Philadelphia Eagles are hosting the Jets. Jets 14-point dogs. Totals at 43.5. But I mean, Eagles are a great offense, so it's not. It's just that I don't want to ever talk about the Jets. Sam Darnold might end up playing. They'd be stupid to play him, but I don't know. It's Adam Gase. He's pretty dumb. So I don't know. That's something we can talk about more on Sunday. For right now, I would still assume that he's not playing. So I guess Bobby, you've got the takes for this game. Fire him.
I like Sanders, like Eagles D. I think that's a really good correlation there with the 13-point spread. My only issue is obviously Sanders hasn't been as reliable with that Philly running game. They run so many different running backs. He had a fumble 2 weeks ago, I think it was, but then showed well in the Green Bay game. I kind of just like him as the best value on a slate where we don't have much at 4,500. That's pretty. I don't love the Jet side. That's pretty much where I'm thinking about going as Eagles D and cash and maybe Sanders.
Yeah, my only problem with Sanders is that Jordan Howard is dominating in terms of volume. I don't think Jordan Howard's good, but For me, I'm just not seeing a ton of volume. Although you do expect with 14-point favorites, just the entire team, like the team rushing total, just projecting their rushing attempts goes up. So even if he's only getting, I don't know, like 30 to 40% of the market share of rush attempts, it's still a lot when you're going to be leading by 14 points. So I do think there's like merit to that. Go ahead, I guess, John. Do you have any lean with the running backs in this game?
Yeah, I'm with Bob here. I like Sanders. He pretty much gets 10 to 12 carries each game. Pretty good matchup here. And it was kind of surprising we didn't see any targets against Green Bay. Prior to that, the last 2 weeks, he had 4 targets in each of those games. And I think the narrative would be a little bit different if Jordan Howard didn't pretty much score all the touchdowns last week. So I think the big games are coming for Sanders. He's definitely risky because he doesn't have as big of a role as a guy like Montgomery, but it's baked into the price. So with such a high team total, I think he's a pretty sharp tournament play.
So in terms of like cash games, is there like anything that would make you consider him in cash as the week kind of moves forward?
No.
Okay.
And especially if he was getting like premium receiving work, even if it was only 10 carries, but then getting 4 to 5 targets a game, I would very much consider it because it is like the great matchup. But like the variance in his game to game target share is like too much for me to play in cash.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to see how like I'm waiting to just pick up. I know it's coming for him, so I'll be chasing.
Yeah, I would think it's coming too, and this would be the week, just not in cash for me. But yeah, it's a sharp call. I expect it to hit eventually. Next game, we have the Denver Broncos versus the Los Angeles Chargers. Denver 6.5-point dogs in what I guess you could call a home game for the Chargers, although they play in a soccer stadium. 44.5-point total. Big news here, obviously, being Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler. Melvin Gordon, generational talent, probably boosted this line 8 to 10 points for the Chargers in favor. Bob, tell us why he's so good.
I'm not a Melvin Gordon guy.
I don't think anybody here is.
I think Eckler at 6,700. Like we're getting another week where we can kind of basically. I think we're getting him pretty cheap. Like Melvin Gordon 7K. I'm gonna get Eckler at 6,700. Like I'd much rather like take Eckler. Eckler would be the cash game back. I think that the third one. Don't want to give away cash, but I know we were just talking about Miles Sanders, and if you guys are of the opinion that he's not someone to consider in cash and at value, like I'm not going to Montgomery, so Eckler would probably be the lowest I'd go, I would say, in cash games. Keenan Allen as well. I love that. He didn't do great last week because there's so much volume in that situation, especially with all the receivers that they have banged up, if that's still the case. And even if it's not, like he's had great games versus Denver in the past. So really like Keenan Allen. I'd prefer Keenan Allen to Eckler, but Eckler, I think both are really sharp plays. How you feeling, John?
Yeah, Keenan Allen's always a good play with his target share. Mike Williams, I think, is coming back this week. It looks like Inman's not coming back this week, or for the rest of the season or whatever. So, but yeah, Melvin Gordon, it's really tough. We don't know what exact role he's going to have. I know the coaching staff came out and said, like, when he's healthy, he's our guy. But, Eckler had a role too last season. So I'm curious to see how they're going to split it up on Sunday, being that Melvin Gordon's been out so long. At 7K, I know it looks enticing, but I'm actually not that interested in it just because I'm kind of weary on the exact role that he's going to have. And like you, I would have more interest in Eckler just because we sort of know he's going to have a passing game role at the very least.
Yeah, Eckler seems like the Danny Woodhead guy, and I think he's a better version of Danny Wood. I just think Eckler's like a better player than Melvin Gordon. Is that like an egregious take?
It's not egregious. A lot of people actually
agree
think
with
that.
you.
Yeah, a lot of people agree with that. I actually kind of am a Melvin Gordon guy, but I love Austin Eckler too. I think they're both actually legit good, but it is what it is.
Yeah, just like sound like Justin, the ambiguity in this backfield. I don't know. I just don't know why there's a decent chance that they literally just trot out Melvin Gordon and play him all the snaps, despite that being like clearly suboptimal to play one dude all the snaps, especially when you have Austin Eckler. Like, we also know the Chargers are like a very not smart, not sharp organization in terms of their coaching staff. So I don't know. I think there are better values on the slate, and that leads me absolutely to Keenan Allen, still second in the league in air yards, first in the league in targets. So like I think he burned us last week, but like had the coldest possible run, and still like his floor game is still good. So yeah, that's where I'd be taking this game.
I think you made a great point there with like relying on the Chargers coaching staff to do the right thing is probably suboptimal in this situation.
We haven't really talked about the Denver side of this. Any interest there? Like obviously Sanders and Sutton have been playing well. Lindsey is sometimes good and then sometimes very bad. And Royce.
You have a quarterback you like.
I think if you need to pay down, you were talking about playing Matt Barkley. Not for my life. I'd so much rather play Joe Flacco, who's like, I have expected points versus salary. I'd so much rather play for 100 more. Like, he's slinging the ball. He's not very good, but he's trying. Boys, Joe Flacco trying.
I'd rather play Chase Daniel than both of those bums.
This isn't true, but if we were playing this game, I would say I'd rather play Colt McCoy. I wouldn't. It's not true. But if we were playing the game, he's also 4,100, I think.
So Kyle's kind of talked me on a Flacco. I'm not going to lie a little bit, just with him being 100 above Barkley. I just seen Barkley at the beginning. I seen John Brown at the beginning of the week, and I was like, I want John Brown. And then it was Barkley, and I was like, oh, it'd be better if it was Josh Allen. But
yeah, I think honestly, like. If Colt McCoy, if you told me he was going to start the entire game at literally 4K likes 4,100, it's like he's literally almost guaranteed to hit value. You just have to like show up. But like he's getting benched. There's no way he's not getting benched by halfway through the game.
Yeah, I can't do it. Not against the Pats. That one's too dicey for me.
Yeah, I like you have to put it 50-50 that it doesn't finish the game, assuming he even starts. Like there's still a debate. I don't know why any rational coaching staff would trot out Dwayne Haskins in his first start to get just annihilated. So, but yeah, I'm not playing him.
There's no way they're sending out Haskins, right?
Currently, they don't have a plan. Is what
really said. They don't have a plan.
Currently, they don't have a plan. The Stan Snyder organization. Who would have thunk it?
I think 12:45 Sunday morning.
I'm pretty sure the exact quote was, "We have no idea what we're doing at QB this week."
No, they don't have any idea what they're doing at any position at any time in any year. They're so bad. All right.
That's an awesome quote, but it just sums up that Redskins team.
Perfect. It really is.
It really is perfect.
We have another game, and I believe we have news. I will double check, but we have Green Bay Packers facing Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys are 3.5-point home favorites, 46.5-point total. I'm pretty sure I just saw somewhere that Michael Gallup's playing.
Yeah, if he is playing, he's a really good play, I would say. I love Gallup. I think he's fantastic. Amari Cooper, another good play in tournaments. Zeke is like I can't believe you guys I get the usage aspect with McCaffrey. The matchup kind of scares me. I know Kyle thinks defense doesn't matter. But the usage is if I'm going to have to play McCaffrey in cash, I'm eventually going to play McCaffrey in cash. But right now, if I had to pick between one or the other, I like Zeke. Zeke is my guy. Sean, you can get it. What are you kind of thinking outside for the Cowboys?
Zeke's definitely a great play. I have him right up there. CMC is the clear play, I think, but I have Zeke right up there with Dalvin Cook and Alvin Kamara. So I think between the three of them, they're kind of even as far as that. Just a step behind Christian McCaffrey in terms of projected total points. Home favorite, good matchup. Green Bay is another team, kind of like the Bills, that's been like a reverse funnel this season, just because they've been pretty good against the pass, really good this season, and really bad against the run. We saw what the Eagles' backfield did to them recently. So I love Zeke. If Gallup plays, that's really good. I wrote up the Cowboys minus 3.5 as a super lock bet this week. Go check it out at thefantasybros.com. But yeah, and then on the Green Bay side, Devontae Adams looks like he's going to miss with turf toe. So originally I wanted to look at these other pass catchers, but they had enough time to where they priced them up already. Like Geronimo Allison is 5K. I'm not paying that for him. Valdez Scantling is 5,600, so not a ton of interest there. So it's really just Aaron Jones if Jamal Williams misses, and that's kind of it for me on the Green Bay side. Am I missing anyone, Kyle?
Yeah, no, I was going to ask you, you get Aaron Rodgers, number one receiver in Marquez Valdez Scantling at 5,600. I think, like, I mean, there's a logical argument to be made that his touchdown like equity is pretty high, but I'm not doing it. I still think it's like you're still trying to bet on the variance of touchdowns, even with Aaron Rodgers. I'm not doing that. Is there actually a chance Jamal Williams plays?
They haven't officially listed him out yet, which I thought was crazy because like he got knocked out worse than like some UFC fighters that I've seen.
Dude.
Like it was really bad. So I highly doubt he plays, but for some reason they haven't ruled him out.
He still listed as questionable. You're not wrong. So
he was a core play on that slate for me. That was a rough one, I would say.
A lights out play, if you will.
First play of the game.
Yeah, that was rough.
I still cashed in Showdown without Williams. So,
yeah, I think that's. I don't really have anything else. I think I'm probably off Amari if Gallup does end up playing. I'm pretty sure Gallup was like out targeting. He's definitely out air yardsing, if that's how you would say it. Through the first 2 weeks, I won't be awfully interested in Amari. I don't think the sentiment will adjust to the fact that Michael Gallup was the number one receiver when he played. So I think Gallup would be a very interesting play. Amari kind of gets a pretty big knock for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Gallup's a beast, man. Like Gallup's good. That whole team's good. I think we're gonna see Dallas representing the NFC this season. Hopefully, I'd like to see that at least.
That's it. We made it through the slate, guys.
Yeah, no, it's good. We got through. I didn't think we were going to get through. It took a little while to hop on, and I don't know. Interesting slate. This slate isn't the greatest slate. It's good for some situations, I guess. What are you guys thinking is like your overall opinion of it?
I mean, we sort of talked about it offline. I think this is a great week for cash and tournaments, just because there's not like the obvious chalk that everyone's going to play like we've had the last 2 weeks. So like this is definitely a week where I think you can optimally play your cash lineup in tournaments, especially at the lower stakes, because there's probably not going to be a ton of ownership on those guys outside of like Christian McCaffrey, pretty much.
Yeah, I think that sums it up well. I think it's a pretty interesting slate for tournaments, just the way ownership's going to be. But like you said, that does set up well for your cash to do well in tournaments. And I think, Bobby, there's something you've stressed in the Discord, which you can get access to if you go to thefantasybros.com/membership. Just if you were wondering how to get into the Discord, that like one of the best ways to build your bankroll is just to like max cash in the lowest stakes you can find. So. Yeah,
guys, I agree with you totally, Kyle. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in. This is the Fantasy Bros podcast. Appreciate you, John and Kyle, hopping on. Peace.